On today's show, who are the real championship contenders and which team might surprise you? Plus, who has been the most interesting player in the league nearly a quarter way into the season? All of that and more coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Adam, we're nearly a quarter of the way into the season, and we're going to be talking about the most interesting players so far this season here in a second. But I thought we could start things off today, a day after Thanksgiving, talking about the contenders. Who are the legit contenders now that we got a little bit more of a sample size? You and I haven't really talked about this since before the season started. We have almost a quarter of the games under our belt now.
Wow.
Let's do a draft. I think that would be a fun way to kind of go about this. We're going to draft the teams that we think are legitimate contenders. This is not a power ranking, right? Let's be clear about that.
Well, I mean, it kind of is. Hold up.
It
kind of is, right? If you draft somebody ahead of another one, you pick them ahead.
It is a little bit of it's like power ranking plus like future forecasting.
Okay.
Kind of fused together.
Well, real quick, Wes, because we are about 15-ish games into the season. I do feel like you can tell who the teams are. And there's a couple teams that there's like, okay, we'll see what they get. The Suns, we'll see how they come together or whatever. But I feel like we know who's not a contender.
Do you want to do that real quick? Teams?
No. I just to set the stage for this draft. I feel like
the Wizards are probably not contenders.
Yeah, I've got them on the outside as well. Look at it. No, but I just feel like, the season's going to play out and there's going to be storylines to it. But I do feel like we kind of know who the contenders are.
It's a great time to kind of take stock of things. So let's just jump right in. We're going to do a draft. We actually have not decided who gets the first pick yet. I am a gracious host, and I will provide you with the very first pick, although I know where you're going to go with this probably. But you get the first pick, I'll get the second pick, you get the third pick, I'll get the fourth pick, and we'll go.
I was hoping I would get the second pick because I think my team would have been available at the second pick, but it's fine. I'm going with the Denver Nuggets. I'm going with the reigning NBA champions, the two-time MVP. They lost Jamal Murray 2 weeks ago to injury. He pulled a hamstring. He should be back in the next, week or two. Before he went down, they looked like the regular season was boring to them. They looked like they had sort of solved it and mastered it. They were dominating teams. Their depth actually looked good, which was one of the big questions. Their depth looked better than it did last year. Since Jamal Murray went down, it's been a little bit more of a strain. They've lost 3 of 4 now on the road, some tough teams. But I think that what we saw with them at the start of the season was, that looks like a team that is fresh off the NBA Finals and getting better every year. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets.
You mentioned the depth there, getting really good minutes from Reggie Jackson. Christian Brown has basically been what they were hoping that he would be this year, kind of coming in as that sixth-man type of guy off the bench on a nightly basis. And the defense has been there. The offense has obviously been there. I think most people doing this exercise would just go ahead and put the Boston Celtics up there with the number one, or take them with the number 1 pick if they were also doing a draft.
Would.
And look, I'm okay with that if that's really where you want to go with this. But I'm like you. I would have taken Denver number 1. You got to beat the man to be the man. I still trust that starting 5 in crunch time. I think they have the best player when we're talking about the balance of the rosters here. Like Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA.
By the way, he in many ways looks better than ever. He's scoring more than he's ever scored before, and at his same efficiency. So it's not like there's some fatigue or drop off from him this year.
And as great as Jason Tatum has been, I don't think he's as good as Jokic. I don't think that's necessarily a hot take here. So, and I think we get so caught up sometimes in like, okay, like who's the best, like 1 through 5, and who has the best bench and all the stuff. Sometimes it really just comes down to who has the best player, and it's what it came down to last year a bit too. The Heat obviously had no answer for them, but nobody in the Western Conference had an answer for Nikola Jokic either. So I'm fine with that pick at number 1 for you. I think that's a good pick. All that stuff being said, though, I'm still going Boston number 2 here because you took the Nuggets off the board. I'll go Boston here. Their starting 5 is dominating teams. They are between Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis. They're playing a 5-out scheme that looks unbeatable some nights. They did lose a recent game against the Charlotte Hornets, which brought some issues to light, I think, that are very real in terms of crunch time, decision making, maybe a little bit too isolation heavy at times.
That's who they are, though.
But that's who they are, right? And if you're playing in that much space, it's not the worst to be an isolation heavy team if you're playing in that much space. Although there are obviously times where you prefer a little bit more ball movement. That said, we're just nitting picks here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they are a very good team with, and again, forecasting forward a little bit, could also be a player on the buyout market. Maybe there's another trade to be made to shore up their depth and things like that. But they've been awesome. They've been dominating, and they deserve to be taken with the second pick here.
Their 5 fits together. I mean, the only questions you have about Boston at this point, they're not really basketball questions because we know the basketball part works. Now it's, can you get it done, or however guy's going to step up, because it's so isolation heavy and shot heavy. They generate good shots, but it's still jumpers, not, their kickouts and in the playoffs. Are they going to go cold? Are they going to be able to step up when pressure arrives? But those are questions that almost can't be answered until we get to that point. So
if they run into the Miami Heat, who knows what's going to happen?
They might
just live rent free in the Celtics' head. I mean, they could discombobble the whole thing. But.
You joke, but it's the real question.
I'm not joking. That's my question. That's my question. All right. So that's we got Nuggets and the Celtics off the board. Your pick.
I'm gonna zig here.
Ooh.
I'm going 76ers.
Oh, that's where I was going to go.
Well, there we go, man. I thought I was doing the trendy little pick here. Now, they have not looked good since losing Kelly Oubre. They have lost some high-profile games, some tournament games, in-season tournament games. They will not be participating. But I like – here's the thing about Joel Embiid. He's obviously an MVP, and he is a dominant player. I worry – Spike Eskin had a great – on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez pod had a great analogy about him the other day. He said – Embiid is a guy that is going to match the culture that is delivered to him, not necessarily one that's going to change it. And you give him Jimmy Butler, you give him Ben Simmons, you give him James Harden. It's not exactly the greatest, he's going to mold to them more than they're going to mold to what Embiid's doing. Well, Tyrese Maxey is such a godsend in that way, because I think he is the ultimate just sort of winning player, hard worker, willing to give up the spotlight to Joel, and Joel in return is willing to give up the spotlight to Tyrese Maxey. And I feel like it is the right partnership finally, and they have a good supporting cast. I think everybody was like, oh, you lose Harden, how are you going to build around it? They have pieces in place, and Kelly Oubre, has fit in before getting injured, fit in very, very nicely and was having a career year there. I like what they have. I think they have a dominant 1-2 punch, and I think that by the end of the season, this team is going to find the right balance, which is that Embiid dominates for most of the game. But at the end of the game, you don't go to the ISO, as they did, by the way, earlier this week against the Cleveland Cavaliers, down the stretch. ISO Joel Embiid at the top of the key. Why? You have a great pair. You go to the pair. You go to the pick and roll. You play off your 2 best players. You don't go to isolations. I think they're going to figure that out throughout the course of the season, and it'll be different for them this year in the playoffs.
Also, again, they have a bunch of stuff that they could trade. There's a move to be made for them. They've got, and look, they've been rumored in the Zach LaVine stuff and all. I think they should skip all of that. They've got their stars. Like you said, Maxey is the guy there. Obviously, Joel Embiid is also the other guy. Go just find other depth pieces so that Patrick Beverley doesn't have to play. Like, to me, that they're the team that they should be banging on the door in Chicago for Alex Caruso, right? Like, that to me is the team.
Yeah.
You've got a bunch of easy.
It'd be scary there.
Wouldn't he be great there as a 6th man? And then you got the Robert Covington contract, the Nick Batum contract, the Morris, like all this stuff that you could put a bunch of 1st-round picks. They're all in right now, obviously. Just you got the guys, just shore up the guys around them, and I think that's probably what they would do after seeing what Maxey's all about. So I love that pick at number 3 here. All right, I don't.
There's an obvious number 4, no?
Is there? Okay, maybe.
We'll see.
I'm going Milwaukee.
All right, I bullied you into it.
I'm going Milwaukee here.
I wish I would have said anything. I wanted to hear the hot take that was about to come out.
I had the hot take lined up and I couldn't do it. You know the team that I really want to say.
Yeah.
It's the same team that you and I have been
gushing over.
Standing for 2 years now. But I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks. I haven't lost faith in them, nor should I have. It was a rough start, but they've basically righted the ship a little bit here. It's against some weak competition, a little bit of a soft schedule. Still, they're going back to the drop defense. You and I think a couple of weeks ago, talked about how their defense made 0 sense. They were switching, they were zoning, they were not doing anything sometimes. They went back to dropping Brook Lopez by the rim. That has helped things, although I still have a lot of questions about that defense. But another one of those teams where at the end of the day, I look at who the top player is, and it's Giannis, and he's playing at an MVP level. He's averaging 30, 10, and 5, basically. The turnover ratio is not great, but I think that'll get better as his decision-making gets better this year in this new offense. And then Damian Lillard. He leads the league in clutch scoring. Like, boom, there you go. I think the formula mostly works in the regular season. I think they'll only get better until as the playoffs get closer. And I've got them here at number 4, which to me is a downgrade because I had them at number 1, I think, or number 2 behind Denver to start the season. So now I got them like at 4 in my pecking order. But still,
I think that the contenders are going to remain the same, and then where they belong in the pecking order will probably change throughout the year. As you mentioned with Milwaukee, they started out at the top, and now they're kind of falling down to this next tier. I understand why you'd be hesitant. To me, Milwaukee fits the mold of a team that is sort of they're on a logical trajectory. New pieces, completely new identity, and they don't look the part yet. But they probably will.
Exactly. Well, we're going to continue our contender draft, and I think we're going to get to some surprising teams here in a second. But first, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite part about Game Time is the last-minute ticket option. Sometimes, you know this, Adam, you're just like, oh, I think it's a busy work week. You're not really thinking, and all of a sudden a night opens up, and maybe my wife and I are thinking maybe we can go to a Florida Panthers game or a ball game or something like that. We just log onto the Game Time app. I can get tickets in a flash. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show you the total up front, so you're not getting a great deal, or so you are getting a great deal without all those hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Contender draft, it's your pick, Adam.
Is it my pick? Oh, yeah, that's right. You took the Bucks. All right, I take our team. Our favorite darlings, the Minnesota Timberwolves. There they are. I love this team. Actually, are they I believe at this very moment, number 1 in the NBA. Best record, 10-3. Boston, 11-3, just slightly better. But 10-3 record.
Number 1 in the West, baby.
Yeah, number 1 in the West. Giant killers. They've taken down all the best teams in the NBA already this year. I just buy the defense. And here, I have to give a shout out, Wes, because you know on this show and on pretty much every podcast I appear on, I talk about how Karl-Anthony Towns is the guy that I just don't buy on that roster. He's the one guy. I will say I like what I've seen from him this year.
Same.
And specifically what I like is that he seems – it's hard to say like when you have 2 guys that could be a number 1. There's rarely a moment where it's like, listen, man, this is your team. I hand it off. It's usually a slow process, and we all kind of know when it's there. I feel like Karl-Anthony Towns this season has sort of gracefully become the team's second guy. They're not playing through him as much, but when they do go to him, he's looking to be a part of the machine, be aggressive in scoring, looking to pass, looking to set the table. And last week he had a phenomenal game winner, but in the lead up to the game winner, he had a great skip pass where he had an open look, kicks it to the corner for an even better look to Anthony Edwards. And to me, it was the symbolic thing of it is better for us to 1, get the best shot possible, and 2, I got it into the hands of Anthony Edwards rather than try to force it myself. And to me, it was a symbolic gesture of what this Wolves team has been about this year, where Towns has now fit into what they needed him to be and utilized his talents towards that end. So I like what I've seen from the Timberwolves, and shout out to Karl-Anthony Towns, who I've been hard on.
It's so funny because that exact personality trait, the non-alphaness, for lack of a better term, is exactly what's making this work right now, because now you have the
Yeah.
alpha in Anthony Edwards. You also have Rudy Gobert, who is a bit of an alpha in that he knows what he's going to do and he's not going to change. He's like, I am this, and like maybe alpha's not the right word, but stubborn, I guess, is a better word. Like I'm just doing this. Like I protect the rim and I roll hard and I set screens, and that's my job. That's what I do, and I'm not going to change it. Karl Anthony Towns has also been very willing to change the way he plays. Hey, you want me to run pick and roll as the ball handler high up on the floor with Gobert as a screener? Sure. You want me to stand in the corner for a little while? I'll do that too. You want me to just be a fulcrum of the offense and pass off to Anthony Edwards? I can also do that. It's fine. He's trying harder on defense, although it's still not great, but he's trying harder. I think his mentality is almost you need the one unselfish guy. Not to say anybody on this team is selfish, but or you need the one deferential guy. And he very much is deferential. And Anthony Edwards, you combine Cat's deferentialness with Anthony Edwards is like, I'm the man, it's my league now-ness. And that is a good chemistry pairing. And I think the experiment is working. Finch is doing a good job coaching the team. The defense is sensational. There's so much size on that team. Like in most matchups, they just are overwhelming you with just big guys and long arms, and they're packing the paint. They force teams to adjust to them, and I think that's a mark of a very good team, and obviously the record shows. So
do you think they can go from 0 playoff wins to true title contention? Do you think there's a process to this that they need to go through?
I think, yes. I think there's going to have to be a process here, but the thing is, if Anthony Edwards, it kind of starts with him. If he's the dude, and if he continues to blossom this way, why not? Why can't they make a run? The West is basically wide open here. Like one injury to the Nuggets in the playoffs. Do you feel good about anybody in the Western Conference?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's all it takes. Like this thing is wide open.
Conley and Gobert have experience. It's not like they haven't been through the playoffs before. You get experience for Ant and Cat last year in a competitive first-round series with the eventual champs. Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid not being a part of it, you could look at that and sort of say, like, well, they don't have the experience and they're going to be such big players. But I think it's certainly an obstacle, but it's possible.
The closest comp would be like the 2006 Heat with a young Dwayne Wade and an experienced Shaquille O'Neal, who even at that point Shaq was a little bit past his prime. So if we're making like the Gobert comparison, but that would be the closest
there it is,
making that leap.
Somebody got mad because last week you compared Rudy Gobert to Ben Wallace. Somebody got upset about that and added us on Twitter. This week, I just want to make it clear, Wes is comparing Rudy Gobert to Shaquille O'Neal.
Just wait for next week. Just see what's going to happen.
Who could it be? Who is Gobert next week? I can't wait.
Let's go. So you took Minnesota, which I feel bad about because that's our team. But you know what? We can share custody.
Here.
We could share custody.
All right.
This is where it gets a little dicey.
It does.
And then I hate all of my picks. I'm going Oklahoma City.
You're questioning your big board is what you're doing. All right, Oklahoma City. Wow.
I'm going Oklahoma City. I'm talking. I wasn't planning on going here, but I just like thinking about the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is that dude already. Chet Holmgren is. If you had to vote on Rookie of the Year right now, he should win it, even though Wemby probably will win it. But
maybe not. I don't know. People keep saying that. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I hope people are paying attention, and I think Oklahoma City, by virtue of being near the top of the Western Conference standings right now. Chet is unbelievable. He's on track to be the kind of player that you need next to a player like Shai to go ahead and win a championship. But he is still a rookie, and we want to keep that in mind. The rest of that rotation makes sense. They're shooting really well from three. I do wonder if that's going to come down here at some point in the season. But I buy the roster. I buy the fact that if they can win 50 games and get home court in the playoffs, like they have a path to a championship. I really think the Western Conference is kind of backwards right now. I don't really believe in any of the kind of established teams outside of Denver. And so I kind of give them a chance here. And the other thing I like about OKC is, again, forecasting forward, trade deadline. I would love for them to make a move. Like, this is a team that can make a short-term play and just say, you know what? Let's just go in on this season and just see what happens. I don't see any harm in it. They've got the picks. I think if they added a big man and another shooter, they could be really interesting in terms of depth. Like, I look at a guy like...
Well, they have no big man. I mean, that's one of their problems.
Go get a guy like Clint Capella or like even like a Nikola Vucevic or just like a depth guy even. Like, you don't have to go like big fit, but like a guy that can give them a little bit of a different look, especially to size up against Denver and Minnesota and those kinds of teams.
Yeah.
I like Oklahoma City, but I need them. I'm taking them really here just in the name of like interesting podcasting. I don't really believe them to be this high on the contending
Man,
list.
what a hedge. That's not true. He picked them. You guys saw it. He picked them. Don't hedge this without trying to make it interesting.
If they make a move, I feel much better.
Okay, if they make a move. Well, they're not going to make a move. Sam Presti wants to play this out.
It's my least favorite thing about Sam Presti.
I know he does this. He gets to this point, and it's very exciting.
He did this in 2012 with the same exact Thunder, which is their closest comp, and then never added any veterans to that group, and that's what that kind of did them in. So
we just asked this from Minnesota, and it was a little bit less fair to ask of Minnesota whether they can get there without experience. I think it's especially true, though, if you look at Oklahoma City. This is not a team that has a bunch of veterans that are like, hey, they've all been here and done this before. They have not won. So for them to go from that to true title contention to me feels like a lot of a stretch. And then, as you mentioned, I love this team, but they are missing pieces that will really harm you in a playoffs. And obviously that's front court depth, and really not even depth, front court, guys that can match up with the size in the Western Conference. And by the way, everybody goes, it's Jokic, who, by the way, absolutely abused Chet Holmgren, made it look like it was the easiest matchup of his entire life when he went up against him. Yeah. So we know that matchup already is tough. You mentioned the Timberwolves. Yeah, I think there's something there because of their size. They're going to rebound on you. They're going to do some things. What about New Orleans? We don't have to go that far down. New Orleans has Zion and Jonas Valanciunas, two beasts inside. They live in the paint. I don't know that you have the pieces that can compete with them.
The Lakers.
So the Lakers have some size inside as well, and obviously live in the paint. So to me, they are too thin. And then Sacramento, don't even forget Sacramento, by the way, who also has some size. So there are more teams than not out west that they might face in a first round that can punish the one thing that they are deficient at. So for me, I can't put them anywhere near my contenders. I mean, they were on my big board, but down further, just because I think they're a great story. I think they have the building blocks. But for me, I'm with you. They need a real center in there, even if it is a backup, but just a guy that you say, okay, in this matchup, we go to Mason Plumlee or whatever it is, just because they need the body.
Just somebody. All right, our last two picks coming up after this. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Today, we've got football, NFL games on Black Friday. My Miami Dolphins versus the New York Jets. The Dolphins are 9.5-point favorites. Maybe that's too big of a spread for you to feel comfortable, but we're not talking about spreads here. We're talking about money line wins, $5 on the Dolphins just to beat the Jets, and you get $150 in bonus bets. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. All right, before we get to the most interesting players of the season so far, our last two picks, you're up.
I'm going to go Sacramento Kings. I know a lot of people are surprised maybe, but look, De'Aaron Fox has leveled up and nobody has quite realized it yet. He was great last year. I think the playoffs pushed him even further, and this year he's looking like the best version of himself. Keegan Murray is making rapid improvements on that team. And then they have better shooting than ever before. Vasenkov obviously coming onto the team. Like they are a team to me that everybody's going to look at it and say, oh, same team as last year, can't win with Sabonis or some of the talking points. I disagree. I think this team is better than they were last year and is growing from the experience they had last year.
And another one of those teams that's been rumored to maybe make a move closer to the trade deadline. Report out there that they're going to be very aggressive, so we can see what they'll do. My last pick here, I went with the stretch pick with my last one. I'm playing it safe. I'm going with my Miami Heat with my final pick here. Jimmy Butler is that guy. He's playing much better than where he was to start the season. Bam Adebayo is playing like not just an all-star, an all-NBA kind of guy. The fact that there's no positions now on the all-NBA team bodes well for him. And they're getting shooting from guys like Duncan Robinson. Tyler Hero was hurt, but was playing out of his mind before he got injured. I like the depth on this team. I think they're deeper than they were last year. Rookie Jaime Jaquez Jr.
Love that dude.
As a real rotation guy.
I thought you were saying looks the part as a guy from Miami.
Also that. So, he just needs the Miami Vice suit, and we're good to go. So I'm going with the Miami Heat here. I don't think that they can be counted out in the Eastern Conference. They look real good.
I think we have one more pick though, by the way, if we're gonna get to 5.
Let's do it.
And for me, I would go with the Phoenix Suns. I know they're way down here, and we're gonna get some hate mail from this. Some people right now are furiously typing very pointed tweets at us. Here's the thing, man. Back injuries are nothing to, just say, oh, it'll be better. It'll be better. With Bradley Beal missing as much time as he has, and then, ramp up, oh, he's cleared to play. Never mind, he woke up not feeling good. Now it's 3 more weeks. I just look at those things and I go, the health of that team is a huge question mark. And then their front court, like we talked about with Oklahoma City, Jusuf Nurkic is not a guy that is going to win you a playoff series. He's a guy that maybe at best could give you like 15 to 20 minutes as a solid piece, but he is not a guy that's going to be able to solve all problems. Behind him with Eubanks, good player. Is that the right, I don't know. So I look at the Phoenix Suns and I go, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, that's unbelievable. Just about unguardable. The pieces around him, there are some role players there, but the front court to me is too much of a question. When we went through all the great front court teams in the NBA out west, I just think Phoenix is going to have an uphill battle unless they can get a real sample size with Bradley Beal. And at the moment, it just looks like this might not happen.
It's my biggest concern is they're not going to be able to develop the chemistry because they're going to need 2 things to beat the size and those guys out west. It's chemistry out on the perimeter and it's hot shooting from role players. That's the formula for them because you already know how great Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to be as long as they're healthy. So,
and by the way, if they play together, it's not a guarantee that they will be good. Like this is the other thing is I think
we got to figure it out.
When you have Booker and KD on the court, the offense is near perfect already. I don't know that there's a more perfect version of them if you add Bradley Beal. It's possible, but we don't know that.
You need one of them. You need them to play. You need one of them to be able to stagger. The bench stuff has been a nightmare. They've had to stagger Booker and KD. You'd like to have them play together a lot more. That's what having Beal there really does, at least for me. I like the Phoenix Suns pick. It's a talent play. You got to include them because of their high-end talent. My final pick is the Lakers for the exact same reason. At the end of have I been impressed with what the Lakers have done? Not really, but they just got to the next stage of the in-season tournament. They are motivated. They play well when they are motivated. They are apparently motivated for this in-season tournament.
By the way, man, what are we talking about here? Memphis, Portland, Utah. Who put this together? Who put this group play together? Adam Silver, I've got my eye on you. Lakers, man. I can't believe that.
Future Las Vegas NBA team owner LeBron James claiming his stake on the Vegas tournament. Get him out there in the sphere. All right.
I can't believe that the Group A or whatever in the West came down to Utah versus LA. Like this is unbelievable.
Sometimes the Lakers just get all the breaks, right? It's Friday, which means it's time to count down to the weekend. What do you have for us today, Adam?
Most interesting player so far. Now, typically this will just be a bunch of star names, right? But we're just using a bunch of star names. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to mix some star names with some non-star names because this is more about what are the guys that are making the conversations, the most important conversations. Who are those guys? And oftentimes it's role players. But I'm not going to start with the role player. I'm going to start with the star of stars, LeBron James.
I love it.
Number 1 so far on my list because he's having the most efficient season of his career. Do you know that, Wes? So far, he is more efficient than any other season he's had. That hyper-efficient 2013 season with the Miami Heat, distant, but way distant to what he's doing this year. He looks unbelievable. Here's my thing. I didn't think LeBron could play this well for more than about 20 games. We're 15 games in. So I'm curious if I'm wrong about this, and this is just what LeBron has in store for all year, or if LeBron is sort of like going to burn out, not fade away this season. But he is playing unbelievable.
Just qualitatively, you watch the eye test, and he looks great. He's got more jump. I mean, I thought last year was really the first time I was like, oh, he just doesn't have it around the rim anymore. But he's got it. And he's even talked about this publicly. He feels like he's got his athleticism back a little bit. He's got his second jump back a little bit more. He's feeling great, and it's showing. And he could pass 40,000 points this year. I mean, that's going to happen. It's unbelievable. So I'm glad
telling you,
it's number 1.
It's awesome to see, and also a really dark timeline for us as humans, that this dude is somehow 40 years old and looks like, I don't know, at worst, he's like a top 200 best athlete on the face of the planet right now. He's 40 years old.
And 20 years in, there's a stat making the rounds the other day, but like players and what they've averaged at year 20 plus. Like the second one behind LeBron is Vince Carter at like 7.6 points per game. And that's like kind of cheating because he didn't play every game. So
he honestly is playing so well. I still don't love that Lakers team, but he's playing so well, at least in like, can't write him out yet. You just cannot write out that team as much as I would write him out with literally any other player under the age of, or over the age of, let's say 32. And here he is at 39. And I'm like, I don't know, man.
You can't write off LeBron.
Next guy on my list, Naz Reid. Naz Reid makes my list here. I guess these are honorable mentions technically, but did you know that Naz Reid is currently the third leading scorer for the Minnesota Timberwolves? Off the bench, as a center, is the third leading scorer. The Minnesota Timberwolves have the best record in the West, second best in the NBA, and a large part of that is because they had the Twin Tower lineups, Towns and Gobert. Nobody's going two centers. What are we doing with two centers? Well, they said, you know what? 3 centers. We're going to put another one in so we can play 2 centers at every single second, no matter what unit. And guess what? It works. Naz Reid is an incredible player. He's one of one in terms of his skill set. Mm-hmm. You know, he's just he plays like a guard out from the center position. He's fit them very, very nicely. And he's a major reason of why I kind of buy them.
So these are the honorable mentions. Can we get to the top 5?
All right, I got to go quickly here. I'm going to go Tyrese Halliburton. He's another big name for obvious reasons. Leading the number 1 offense, looks incredible, and he is having a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander year where he came in and we're like, he's a nice player, and now we're like, oh no, he's one of the guys. I think Kevin Garnett said something like he's in the conversation. Yes, that conversation. Yeah. And I agree. He is in that conversation.
He is awesome. What do you have the other night against Atlanta in that 302 total point? Like it was like 38 points and 16 assists or 36 and 6. It was crazy.
And doesn't turn it over.
He doesn't turn the ball over. He's the fulcrum of one of the best offenses in the NBA. Totally deserves to be in here and just continue. Very interesting to continue watching him make this leap.
Going quickly here, Derek White. The Celtics are 10-1 with Derek White in the lineup, 1-2 without him. I don't think that's a coincidence. Mm-hmm. That death lineup that they have, that starting lineup that all fits together, like Derek White, when you take him out, you lose a lot of that dribble penetration. You were saying earlier they can become too ISO dependent, this or that. Derek White, to me, is the best of all of them at getting into the paint and making the defense rotate and then finding all their shooters. He's also a great shooter himself. So to me, he is completely necessary. I think they're like plus 29 net rating with him in the starting lineup and -4 with him out of the starting lineup. The same starting lineup, just minus him. He's a huge, huge piece of that. Fits perfectly, and he's never talked about as such a key part of that lineup.
Agreed. He's been awesome for them.
Alperen Şengün, his team, it's his team now, which is super interesting. He's averaging 21, 9, and 6, which is absurd numbers. Like we're numb to it, but that's an insane thing. And the Rockets have been good this year.
I love that the Rockets are just blatantly trying to copy the Denver Nuggets blueprint. You never, because you kind of see it, but you never really have teams just admit it in public, like in the media, and they're just like, "No, that worked, and we're gonna just try to do that." So
we have
Jokic light. So
they have the best Jokic copy in the entire league, in my opinion. And then my number 1 guy, Tyrese Maxey. This is how you know he's been so good. We're 14 games into the season, and this feels like oh, come on, we knew what we were getting from him. No, we did not. Coming into the year, could have broken a lot of different ways. He's been that good that he's just penciled into a superstar role now because of how good he is, and a guy that you could see being a finals MVP or the best player in a playoff series, despite the fact that he's on Embiid's team. He looks like Embiid's equal in that way, and when you have 2 players of that caliber, that's how you win. The 76ers have that, and he's completely made us forget that James Harden held that team hostage for 6 months.
If you put together a list of guards who could be next as like top guys on winning teams before the season, it would have been SGA. Maybe you would have been Anthony Edwards if you were high on him. He's certainly on that list now. Right. Tyrese Halliburton, same thing, certainly on that list now. Nobody was talking about Tyrese Maxey in that.
Not like that. Right? Not in that way.
And he is in that group now. It's him. It's De'Aaron Fox. It's SGA. It's Halliburton. It's those guys. Those are the guys who are sort of like next up. So yeah, I agree with him being number 1. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Everydayers, make sure you subscribed on YouTube and Odyssey or wherever it is that you get your podcast. The show will be back on Monday with the biggest stories from the NBA weekend. Until next Friday, you can find me over at Locked On Heat and Adam at Locked On Nuggets. Have a great weekend, everybody.